This is the Conrad Alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K. How can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
Food for 5 years. 1,000 gallons of gas. Air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is January the 25th, 2024. This is episode 419 of Workshop Radio. How are all my fellow delinquents out there this fine winter day, winter evening? The weather has been far superior than it has been before in the last couple of weeks, so it is great to be back with you folks. I'm going to open up with, I know, just picked up, went to go live, and all of a sudden, boom, frog in my throat. It's a good start to the evening. There, we should be good now. Good to see you, David Siegler, Off-Grid Ping, Byron Roberts, Rachel C. Great to have you all in here. Let's open up with a rule to live by. I threw all 30-some rules into a randomizer, and this evening it spit out number 2. And that is, you have to make a mess to fix a mess. And this has been, it's actually the second highest number on my list. It's one that I've lived by. Ask Becky, she'll tell you. But many, many years ago, when I was home for the summer, working in between college, I got a job at one of my friend's places. His name was Phil. It was a used bookstore called New to You, Music and Books. And one day I went in there and he had the place just strewn about. I mean, it looked like a friggin' tornado had gone through there, if they had tornadoes in Nova Scotia. And I looked at him and I said, "What the hell are you doing?" And he looked at me in the smart ass way he always did. "Well," he says, you got to make a mess to fix a mess. And I took that to heart from that day forward and realized anytime you want to make something better, anytime you want to make improvements, things get messy. Sometimes you got to tear it down, burn a bridge, sink a boat, whatever it happens to be, before you can fix whatever's wrong. And it number one, sticks with clutter, but it also focuses on the individual person as well. And so rule number 2, you have to make a mess to fix a mess. So how is everyone out there this evening? It's been, like I said, it's been a much better week. We've got a ton to go over tonight. I love this week in prepping show. They have become the most watched by a mile, live streams every single week. So let's dive in, folks. Give me one moment here. We're going to open up with the precious metals. I have some plans in the future for you, just so you know that I'm going to get some, interesting scene transitions or audio little clips for you to play at the start of each segment. We'll figure it out. But if anybody has any suggestions, I'd love to hear it. But so here's one for you guys. This came out of an email I got from Silver Gold Bull. I know you guys have them in the U.S., but they tend to be the place that most folks buy their gold and silver from in Canada, if you're buying it through the mail. And they just opened up a brand new top of the line security vault in Calgary, which is cool, but not my cup of tea. I'm not one for, if I were to hoard or pick up precious metals, it's not going to be sitting in somebody else's vault, but it is one of those things to look at and think about. So I wanted to share, I found this article this week from the Matador, and it is all about the pros and the cons of storing gold or silver, in this instance, in a vault versus at home. And I thought this would be a fun one to share. I kind of have my suspicions where most of us, free choice folks are going to land. But anyway, a couple of thoughts in here to think about. So security and protection, for sure. Pros of storing gold in a vault. One of the primary advantages of storing gold in a vault is the level of security or protection. Yes. But we'll move on. Convenience and accessibility. I don't really, anyway. Another advantage of storing gold in the vault after buying gold is the convenience and accessibility it provides. Most vault operators offer 24/7 access to the gold stored in their facilities. Okay, I mean, yes, it's better than having paper gold and silver, buying basically stocks in paper, in gold or silver. But still, anyway, move along. Cons of storing gold in the vault. And here's the big ones. One of the biggest drawbacks of storing gold in the vault is the cost involved. Most vault operators charge storage fees, which can vary depending on the amount of gold being stored and the duration of the storage period. So it already costs a bunch to buy precious metals, and then you're going to introduce another cost or a couple more costs because sometimes there's insurance and this sort of thing. Tax considerations will slide into it. And next one, lack of control. And I like this. Another potential disadvantage of storing gold in the vault is the lack of control that buyers have over their assets. And overall, I would say that's the thing that makes me the most nervous, is not having something I've spent. And for whatever reason you want to buy precious metals, for me, I'd like to have it both as wealth assurance, and if the shit ever did hit the fan, I'd love to have it for a currency, or even if our dollar, if something ever happened to the Canadian dollar or the American dollar, I want to have it physically with me. I don't want to have to go and wait in line for some biometric lock device to let me in or not let me in. Now, pros of storing gold at home. These are the ones I kind of lean on, but control of ownership, control and ownership. One of the primary advantages of storing gold at home is the level of control and ownership it provides. Buyers who store gold at home have personal access and control over their assets. Yeah, no shit. We know that. No storage fees. Again, why would you introduce another fee if you didn't have to? Another advantage of storing gold at home is that buyers do not have to pay storage fees. This can be a significant cost savings for buyers. Additionally, buyers who store gold at home do not have to worry about transportation costs. I didn't realize that you ended up having to pay to have, I mean, anyway, it makes sense, right? But cons of storing gold at home. Now here, we're going to land on this for just a minute, but security risk. One of the biggest drawbacks of storing gold at home is the security risks associated with it. Well, real easy way to mitigate that is to not tell anybody you got silver or gold around the house. That's pretty simple. I'd go with that. I mean, Stephen Harris, a guy I used to listen to all the time, he used to talk about security through obscurity. And to me, that's one of the best ways. Just don't put yourself on the radar. I know it's easy to say when you're live streaming, but don't put yourself on the radar. Don't let people know what you have, and don't hide it in the obvious places. And lack of insurance coverage. Again, I'm not buying, if I were buying precious metals, I'm not buying it to let other folks and insurance companies and that sort of thing know. But it is something to think about. Another potential disadvantage storing gold, lack of insurance. Unlike professional vaults, which provide insurance coverage for a fee, buyers who store their gold at home may not have the same level of protection. Yeah, okay. Vault storage fees can, this was the crazy part that I was like, oh, yeah, I don't think I'd even think about it. Vault storage fees can range from a few hundred to several $1,000s per year, depending on the amount of gold being stored and the location of the vault. In addition to storage fees, gold buyers may also need to pay fees for insurance coverage, shipping, and other services. Yeah. And then there's this. In general, buying and selling gold can trigger capital gains taxes, while storing gold in a vault may result in property taxes or other fees. I didn't do a lot of digging into that. I'm not exactly sure how you're going to have to pay property tax by having gold in a vault. But yeah. And then for buyers who choose to store gold in a professional vault, transportation and shipping can be a major logistical challenge. Shipping gold requires careful planning and attention. Yeah. So I don't know. This led me down another rabbit hole later on that I thought, you know what? Next week, we're going to talk about precious metals and a house fire. Because to me, if you were going to store this kind of stuff indoors at your home, the biggest risk in my mind would be if the house burned down. So we're going to talk about that down the line. Let's take a look at, oh man, we got a lot of folks in here tonight. Off-Grid Ping says, I too agree. If I were to have gold or silver, it wouldn't be anyone else's possession. And to me, and maybe, you know, because here's the other thing. I don't look at precious metals as an investment to make money on, if that makes sense. It's not like buying stocks where you sit back and you wait, you know, for for it to increase and then pull it out and move it around. Now, gold and silver is a different thing. It's a way to kind of put money into wealth or put money into another type of denomination that hopefully won't be subjected to the whims of the market, if that makes sense. And we are live over on Instagram as well, folks. I see a few people over there, Homestead Glamour. We got a couple Radio Made Easy. Good to see you, folks. And Rachel says, definitely prefer buying local with cash. In North Carolina, there's also no tax on gold and silver purchases. So there's not even really a receipt. I love it. Just going to say, you know, the old gun show clause, it works at prepper shows too. If you go to prepper shows and people have gold or silver they want to sell, yeah, you don't need to worry about it either. And let's get the comic relief out of the way this evening. David Sigler says, Tim got his first stash of silver by extorting Santa's silver shoe buckles before he would pull his sled out of a snowdrift on Christmas Eve. Tim is a bad, bad man when elves are in the equation. And Hardway Homestead says, pirates buried their gold and still people haven't found it. If you guys have ever seen the TV show Oak Island, I grew up about an hour away from there. Story goes that pirates hid a bunch of gold down some sort of mine shaft there, and they've yet to find it. Certainly makes for good television from what I've seen. So, and one more thought here, and then we'll move on to the next article. Chicken Hawk Farmstead, great to see you, said, hidden is sometimes safer than in a big safe. Exactly. Because here's the thing. In a big safe, people know there's something in a big safe. Hidden, unless they find it, you're pretty good, right? All right, let's move on to the Stranger Than Fiction. So what do I got here for you now? If you guys didn't hear, Becky sent me this one a couple of nights ago. I hadn't even heard about it. NATO kicks off largest military exercise in decades. So I guess I seen somebody the other day, they basically said, hey, I scour the news so you guys don't have to. And that's kind of what I've been doing. You know, I go through Google News a couple times a day, and I think Google's starting to curate their news toward me because I'm getting more of the things that I'd like to share with you guys. But this is just interesting, just something to be aware of, not something to be scared of. But these are the type of stories that it's just nice to know about, you know? So first off, NATO on Wednesday began its biggest military exercise since the Cold War, with a warship leaving the United States for transit across the Atlantic to Alliance territory in Europe. 90,000 troops will take part in the months-long Steadfast Defender 24 exercise designed to test its defenses in the face of Russia's war on the Ukraine. So this is the largest demonstration, whatever you want to call it, practice, you know, type thing since 1988, since the Cold War. Steadfast Defender will be a clear demonstration. This is, you know, they're kind of talking some harsh language here. Steadfast Defender will be a clear demonstration of our unity, strength, and determination to protect each other, our values, and the rules-based international order. Interesting. The exercise right here, it says, so we're going to have 50 naval vessels, 80 aircraft, and over 1,100 combat vehicles will take part. The exercise, the biggest since 1988, reforger drill during the Cold War, comes as NATO, you know, blah, blah, blah from there. So in other words, this is one of those big, hey, guess what? You can't see it, but I'm flexing my muscles, you know, kind of like Popeye, and they droop down for a minute. But this is NATO just saying, you know what? We're going to do an exercise. It's kind of like whenever North Korea feels like the world isn't paying attention to them, they're like, hey, time to test an ICBM. So if anybody asks you, have you heard about the largest military exercise from NATO? They're calling it the Steadfast Defender 2024. You can now say you have. Let's move along, because it's not a nothing burger. It's just something to be aware of, but not to be scared of. David Sigler says, pretty sure Canadians think gold nuggets are the corn kernels found in frozen turds. That could be true. And Chicken Hawk says it's a flex, and that's exactly how I view it as well. It's a flex. This one's cool. This is a technology story here. Found this, I believe this was in the comments on Reddit, actually. And it says, meet PiDex, your Raspberry Pi 5-powered doomsday companion. And if Jake from Ravenwood Acres is listening tonight, he'll enjoy this one for sure. But this is pretty cool. So this guy here named Kenneth, he said, so basically they said, Kenneth is nothing if not prepared, and he's getting ready to survive in a post-apocalyptic world by building his own Raspberry Pi-powered cyberdeck. Meet PiDex. So basically this guy built a custom computer. We'll go down a little further and take a look at it. There's a YouTube video that you can link. Also, I've been getting much better at this, folks. So if anything you see during the show piques your interest, all the links are in the description, so you can click on them and have fun with them. But there is a video on the build of this. It's kind of cool. And it gives a rundown of the hardware and, you know, rugged waterproof box. So it's right there. You've got 3 Ethernet ports, Looks like 4 USB ports, got a 32 gig flash drive, a whole bunch of cool stuff. But what I liked about it was earlier this week, I guess it was Monday, on the Prepper Broadcast Network, James had an interview with a really cool guy who was doing fresh cuts of beef, not like ground beef or anything, but you can get sections of ribeye and that sort of thing, freeze dried, and he's shipping them out. Really neat veteran guy and everything. But the topic, or the title of the episode, was Prepping Has Gone Mainstream. And guys, I got to tell you, it has. There are stories every day. And they talk about preppers, they talk about being prepared, but when it comes down to it, it's just the concepts of being prepared, which are just all over the media lately. And of course, we know it's an election year, and every time it's an election year, everybody goes a little bit bonky, but here we are. But what I like about this, the dude took a copy of the Wikipedia database, lives on a flash drive nestled inside its own phone line slot in the case. Anyway, they make some fun here. And portable solar panels can be drafted to give you extra juice on the go. This guy just looks like a regular Pelican case. He trimmed the foam out as needed. He even made little labels, 3D printed stuff. And I don't want to get into all the technical end of it because I wouldn't be able to, but you see, you got a folding solar panel there and the whole Pydex with a little keyboard. And I thought it was really neat. I thought it might be a project that some of the tech heads out there might be interested in. So the link's in the description in case you're looking, but it just gives you the control over building your own kind of portable computer box. And I like that. Now, the next one's a little bit longer, but this one really caught my attention this week. And this is an article from Business Insider. And it is Civilization's Rise and Fall. And it's an inside and off-grid community of families preparing for the downfall of America. Pretty common. We've seen articles on this before, but this is Business Insider talking about it. We're going to touch on a few of the high points, but I'm going to tell you right away, we're not going to touch on this entire article. If you want to dig it up, read it. It's neat what they're doing anyway. But Riverbed isn't a commune or typical farming community. It's a land cooperative made up of 135 shareholders with a single goal: living independently of modern mass-scale systems of production. And I saw this quote here. It's a little different than we've heard it quoted before, but it says, "True wealth is how long you can survive without money." Interesting. In the summer of 2019, Fisher, that's the guy who founded this, and 15 other households broke ground on this 1,245-acre property. It was kind of cool. He said, and then, of course, the news always has to throw this in here. The stereotypical doomsday prepper, the paranoid fearmonger, stocking bullets and canned goods in a bunker, is a fringe figure. But this is where I constantly see this quote or something very similar. A growing number of Americans have gained interest in learning survival skills and preparing for disaster. The number of Americans who said they recently spent money on emergency preparedness jumped from 20% in 2020 to 29% in 2023. So people are concerned, and rightfully so. Why not be prepared? It's the prudent thing to do. This guy asked the question, he says, would it be safer to grow my own food, store my own water, and not depend on complex systems that I don't understand? Well, of course it would be. And the author said, but as I spoke with him, I couldn't help but think of all the... Okay, so I put this one in red on purpose because this is very similar to the article we read out of Great Britain a couple of weeks ago. So here it is, the Business Insider. When I spoke to these folks, I said, but as I spoke with them, I couldn't help but think of all the people their vision would leave behind. So again, you can't help everyone, but what you can do is set yourself up so you're not a drain on the system. I don't know what more they want us to do. This is, people prepare and they're called selfish. People build off-grid communities to help all their neighbors, and they're still worried about all the other folks. You can do what you can do, but look after your family, look after your own, and then help other folks as well. Because if you do look after yourself, you're going to be in a position to hopefully help other folks down the road. But again, they always just got to put in that little line at the end, and it kind of drives me crazy. This guy here, Philip Gleason, 73, he's the one who launched this community in Utah. And he said it all started when he had daughters at home when they were quite young. And one day he just thought, what are you going to do if the problem lasts 2 weeks longer than the resources you have stockpiled? So that's when Riverbed Ranch became his answer. He and the initial group of shareholders split the cost of the property and they began building. The goal is to be able to grow enough food for everyone in town to live on in the event that outside resources become unavailable. And if they don't, hey, you've got yourself a really great self-reliant system there, which I like. If disaster strikes, the ranch is relatively well prepared. It's got a medical clinic, a volunteer fire station, gas and diesel tanks, and a town store. There is Fortitude Ranch, if you've heard of that. It's a very similar setup to this. There are connections through the Prepper Broadcast Network that deal with it. And I thought this was kind of neat. I enjoy it. You can see it from the sky there. I believe right here, actually, it tells. Gleason likes doing things his own way, but in the interest of long-term stability, he has sought to maintain positive relationships with local county officials. In other words, state jiu-jitsu, right? Riverbed Ranch is 60 miles from the nearest post office and completely untouched by physical utility grids. Residents have groundwater and private solar systems, but legal entities are appropriately registered, building codes are enforced, and tax dodgers are not welcome. Tax is a four-letter word. We all know this. So we kind of know where this guy stands, but I get it. You don't want to end up coming across as a compound, a Koreshian compound or something where all of a sudden the ATF decides. Anyway, residents are interviewed. This is kind of neat. I like this. Residents are interviewed and vetted by elected board members for their level of commitment to the endeavor, relevant skills, and reliability. So in other words, again, you can join if you are going to be a part of the community. That's what I like. And shareholders spend $35,000 to receive water rights, a plot, and access to communal facilities. They also earn the right to vote on certain issues and elect representatives who oversee things such as road management and conflict resolution. And finally here, from the author's impressions, he said, of the dozens or so residents I met, Fisher's statement about not being gun-toting lunatics, basically, is what he said, rang true. Most of the shareholders I talked to struck me as committed, apolitical, which I like, hobbyists who wanted to forge a deeper relationship with the systems of production and their lives are depend on. So anyway, I wanted to give you an overview of this. It's a long article. You guys can see there's a ton in there, and it's definitely worth checking out if you want. The link, like I said, is in the description, but I'm going to reach out to this dude, see if he's interested in coming on the show. I'd love to pick his brain and see where the motivation for this came from, where the drive comes from every day to keep going, and what his long-term goal is. I mean, he's a dude in his 70s, but you need to have something to do, right? And I love this. I love the idea of building an off-grid kind of community/compound, although don't we hate that word compound? It's so scary. All right. So next, folks, we have, hang on here, Sunshine Prepper. And we're going to look back to let me check back with the community here quick. Chicken Hawk Farmstead said, the only thing the government has done lately is make us want to be more prepared. 100%. Nothing wrong with that. Chicken Hawk says, makes more sense to have 2 t-shirts instead of giving the one off your back and being cold. Yes, that is very true. Nothing wrong with that. And of course, John Palmer, 2 is 1, 1 is none. And in my words, 3 is a guarantee, not an actual guarantee, right? Rachel C says, I totally want a scary compound. Yes. Mine's called a gully. It's not a compound. Not a compound. So, but yes, absolutely. I'd love to have a place where a family could all come, family and friends alike, and we could all be prepared and hopefully never have to deal with that shit. It could be just a great vacation property for the next who knows how long. All right. So if you're new here, folks, this is Sunshine Prepper News segment, and this is Willow. This is her 3rd week doing this. She's doing great. She has a very bubbly, sunshiny personality, which I absolutely appreciate. And I want to highlight this comment here. You may not be able to see it, but I'm going to read it to you. It's from Mr. 1987. And it said, goodness gracious, you are a peppy woman. I need more coffee before I can watch something like this. And Willow is absolutely sunshiny prepper through and through. So let's give her a listen here, and we'll see what news she's going to cover this week. All right, so it sounds like we don't have any sound here, guys. Give me 1 second. We will get it up and running. And yeah, sorry about that. It's the beauty of live television now, isn't it? So we're going to bring that in. We're going to present it. We're going to bring her back on. And yeah, Willow has done a great job with this. Like I said, it's her third. We've been doing this. We're going to do, I don't even know how to exactly, well, we haven't got a name for it yet, but Nicole and I are going to be doing these Kickstarters for entrepreneurs. We're going to, the first couple are going to be, you're going to fill out an application and we're going to bring you on. Eventually there's going to be a bit of a fee, but the whole idea came from this conversation with Willow, and her personality is sunshine. And so we wanted to figure out a way how to monetize her sunshine, which I thought was really cool. So now we got it. I forgot to click this one right here. There we go, guys. Let's give Willow another chance. I apologize. And she worked really hard on this. So she was a very happy mime. Sorry for those in the audio, but here we go.
Hello, and welcome to today's Sunshine Prepper News. I'm Willow, the Sunshine Prepper, here to spread a bit of positivity on the unavoidable doom and gloom. Instead of a deep breath, I think we should practice some laughter today. So if you are so compelled, please join me for 5 seconds of maniacal laughter. If you've never looked up the benefits of laughter, there's a Google rabbit hole waiting for you. The most important bit is that your body can't tell the difference between fake and real laughter, so faking your laughs still gets you the benefits. With the ha-ha-has of hopeful outcomes laughed away, let's dive into the uncomfortable stuff. Today, we must rip off a Band-Aid. Plain and simple, World War III is inevitable. Oh God, the pain in my normalcy bias. It's so intense. But for real, the normalcy bias that we have around this one needs to die as quickly and thoroughly as possible. I too have tried to lie a happy place in my expectations that something prevents this from further escalating into World War, when in reality, history is more likely to look back on these years and conclude that with the amount of governments launching missiles and drones at other governments, that perhaps the shit has been flung at the fan. Maybe it hasn't quite made impact yet, and we're living in the slow motion place, knowing that the poo is headed to go kabloo on the fan. But no one's going to jump out and shout from the rooftops that, oh, World War III has started. But I think that the following examples lay a solid case for the wheels of war being in motion, at least in a way that's beyond our circles of influence at this point. Buckle up for a quick overview. First, in Europe, we've got Sweden, Estonia, and Norway making various flavors of announcements to tell their citizens to prepare for war. Britain has gone so far as bringing up conscription for men and women and stating that war is inevitable in the next 20 years, while Germany is pledging to be the military backbone of defense of Europe. Also, consider that Russia's leaked plans, even if that leak was fake or not 100% real, or whatever fourth dimensional chess voodoo hoodoo that's supposed to be, I still think it fairly well demonstrates that there is a long-term plan for conflict. Definitely longer than the goldfish attention span in the United States. But there's more. NATO is holding its largest military exercise in the last 40 years, amassing around 100,000 troops over the next few weeks in the direction of Russia. As a wise prepper once said, there are no military exercises, only World War III disguises. I think we should also look then at how much money and resources China is spending on exercises around Taiwan as just another World War III disguise. They wouldn't be spending that much money and fuel if they didn't genuinely plan on taking Taiwan. They also really disapprove of how Taiwan's most recent election turned out and are kind of committed to doing everything in their power to take back the island. It's just a matter of when. Though I think a ground invasion is pretty unlikely, a lot of chaos could come just from sea and airstrikes. Let's not forget that very recently North Korea launched some missiles into the Yellow Sea, and that made South Korea put themselves on the highest state of alert. There's unavoidable escalation happening over in the European brawl, and we've got a tinderbox ready to blow in the Far East, while in the Middle East, we have Israel arming their citizens. I heard an air control center was recently bombed, and so hospitals in Lebanon and Israel are doing mass casualty drills. It's a mess. But it's thought by military analysts and the government of Israel that if a deal can't be reached within about a month, then war with Hezbollah is imminent. All the while, Israel is also verbally wanting to fight with Iran, saying that it's the head of the octopus. I need to learn more about those geopolitics. But on top of that, you've got the United States and Israel now shooting missiles at Yemen in retaliation for the Houthi rebels shooting missiles at ships in the Red Sea. It's just missiles, all this hoopla with the Suez Canal. Please, somebody tell me, how is this not definitively the beginning of the end of the world as we know it? If you had heard headlines like that, all these missiles going back and forth and military operations slowly finally being called war back like pre-pandemic, this would have been called World War, I think quite quickly. Like, how did military industrial complexes everywhere would have risen up? I don't know. How do we normal our way by up until now? How are more people not waking up to like the great peace that we've generally experienced in the last chunk of decades was a glorious anomaly in the grand scheme of human history and conflicts? It's been really, really nice. Like, I'm glad I got born in this chunk of history. But I don't know. How all that works is so far out of my scope of influence that all I can really do is laugh about it. Well, our predicament really is no laughing matter, but I think that we all need the physical benefits of laughter after all that gloom. Whether it's going to be in 1 year, 5 years, or miraculously 20 years, conflict between nations is increasing in a country near you. But don't be worried about the glorified doom and gloom like conscription. Instead, be worried about how a war economy could change your life. A mushroom cloud is not likely to take you out nice and easy. So, to help secure your standard of living for all the things that are headed our way, my suggestion today is potatoes. Yes, potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. I personally prefer sweet potatoes, and this will be my first year attempting to grow either. But wait, have you heard of the true survival tactical tot, known as the Jerusalem artichoke, which is neither from Jerusalem nor an artichoke? But I hear it's like the honey badger of root crops. It doesn't take much for them to regrow in an area. And any food that you can grow on your own will be a compounding blessing to your future self. What happened to victory gardens? Why isn't that a thing? How do we reinvigorate that as a movement? If you agree with me, the future history books will say that World War III was already in motion in 2024. Commit to cultivating some kind of potato in your garden today. May this be the year of victory gardens. Willow the Sunshine Prepper out.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Willow is, like David said here, let's go back and read a couple of the comments from the community while she was going. Willow makes me think the end times will be full of ponies and cupcakes with extra sprinkles on top. And John says he can't eat cupcakes, but he could eat a pony. Well, I guess you're probably right there. And so, like I said, we've been discussing a few different options with Willow on different things that she can monetize, because a feller, a lady or a guy wants to create content, but the reason you want to do it is to both help people and to make money. You're allowed to do both. And one of the things we absolutely talked to her about was something very similar to this. David Sigler says Willow should sell her services to host funerals. She could take the sad or to being dead. Well, you're not wrong there now, are you? And give her a follow. I just threw up her YouTube channel in the comments here, so make sure you give her a follow. She just launched her channel 2 weeks ago, and she has 8 subscribers. She deserves 8,000 subscribers or more, but give her some love, share it around, and do that. Before I forget, guys, we got a shout out to our first sponsor of the evening, and that is my brother Joel Riles from Fortress Canine. He has the Protection Dog podcast. And if you're like, I'm not into dogs, it's okay. You can still listen to Joel, because he'll tell you how it is, how to get there, and how to be successful all along. He's the type of dude that when I asked him, how do you stay motivated? He said, I don't have motivation. I get up, I do it, and then I find the motivation. It's like, yeah, you're not wrong, Joel. He's a good dude. We're going to be at multiple events together. I always sit down, smoke a cigar, drink a dash of bourbon with him, and just share life stories, because Joel is something else. He is, just give him a listen, give him one shot, stick him in your ear holes, and give the Protection Dog podcast a go. He took a chance on this podcast way back when it first started. He was our very first sponsor, and he's a true brother to me. So anyway, don't forget about Joel as we go along. What do we have next? All right. Next, we are going to move into the workshop wasteland. I've got some good ones for you this week, guys. One I hadn't heard of before, and one I'm rather excited to share with you. So I'm going to give you the one I hadn't heard of before. Let's go in here. We will share. There you go. So if anybody out there ever read the book Swan Song? I have not, but I'm now going to add it to my list of must listen to books. Sci-fi post-apocalyptic classic novel is finally being adapted. There's some things to be excited about here. So let's dive in. It's a short one. Good news for the fans of Swan Song. Robert McCammon's critically acclaimed post-apocalyptic novel is slated to make a long-awaited debut on the small screen. Sci-fi fans and bookworms should relish seeing McCammon's bold vision brought to life by none other than Greg Nicotero, the guy who is an executive producer on The Walking Dead, but more importantly, did all of the best grisly, gross you out special effects on The Walking Dead and plenty of other classics going back into the 80s. The dude has a passion for post-apocalyptic fiction, and he will do this right. At least I hope he will anyway. So I got to go and listen to the book at some point and give it a shot. So here's a copy of the cover. And the novel's harrowing, captivating survival narrative, enriched by supernatural intrigue, takes place in an American devastated by nuclear war with the U.S.A. How prescient is that? Hey, folks, the book's post-nuclear dystopian wastes where monstrous creatures and hostile demonic forces run amok. Rivals the best and worst of other post-apocalyptic stories it certainly influenced. It sounds like, with the demonic forces at play, sounds like it might have some similarities to World Made by Hand. So I haven't read it. I'm excited. I'm always excited when I hear about new post-apocalyptic pop culture. This one should be good. But the one that I think other folks, somebody over in, so this Workshop Wasteland segment, it has its own Telegram group. So if you'd like the link to it, just let me know. But that's where we, you know, when we want to just talk about shit that really doesn't matter, things that we're just interested in, basically post-apocalyptic pop culture, that's where we do it. So check this out, folks. I don't know if anybody caught this story this week or not, but this is from inverse.com. The last post-apocalyptic movie you'd think of getting is getting a prequel series. Check this out. They call it a forgotten one. I didn't think it was. I think it's pretty popular in our community, but it says a forgotten 2010 post-apocalyptic movie is getting a second life on television. John Boyega, if you don't know him, he played in the latest Star Wars movies. He's going to be the star. He's going to executive produce a prequel series. You ready for this? Anybody on the audio? I've teased it enough. To the Book of Eli. So anybody who hasn't seen the Book of Eli, it's a great movie starring Denzel Washington. I won't spoil the ending, but the whole idea is he supposedly has the last copy of the Bible in existence, and he's trying to get it to somebody who kind of protects or curates all of the lost media. I loved it. Becky and I watched it years ago. It was a bit on the low budget side, I would say, but it wasn't a bad thing. But Denzel made it incredible. So this is going to be a prequel, but it gets better. While the original movie was set 30 years after the apocalypse, the upcoming series is reportedly set while or during the apocalypse is happening, meaning we'll see the story's big flash actually happen. A post-apocalyptic story being followed by a prequel about the apocalypse itself is suddenly all the rage. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes followed the events leading up to the Planet of the Apes. Fear the Walking Dead did the same. And the upcoming A Quiet Place Day One will do the same with A Quiet Place. So here is, I'm just going to say I'm gently excited, cautiously optimistic. I know I use that term all the time, but every time I hear about Hollywood rebooting something that I loved or really enjoyed, all I can say is, you've heard the saying, go woke, go broke. Well, we hope that doesn't happen in this instance. I don't see how it could, but it could. Who knows? But I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm excited for A Quiet Place Day One as well, but this could be good. No kind of, I don't think it said anywhere in here when it may come out, but Gary Whitta, the Book of Eli screenwriter, will also serve as the showrunner, which should keep the story coherent. I'm excited. I think it has the potential to be good. Quite often, whenever we're sitting around, when we have a little bit of free time and we're talking about, hey, what's your favorite end of the world movie, end of the world TV show? something I hear come up all the time is, you know, Hollywood loves to spend a lot of time on the post-apocalyptic, but it doesn't like to deal with the present apocalyptic. And sometimes that's the most exciting fiction you can get, is when society's collapsing, when all the other stuff is falling apart. So for what it's worth, this series is going to take a look at how the collapse happened. Could it be good? Yes. They probably could have got, what's his name? David Washington, I believe, or John David Washington, his son, probably would have been really good in this as well. But either way, this was the piece of news that I was the most excited about this week to share with you. If nobody else had heard it, I'm glad I could share it with you for sure. All right, moving right along. So the aforementioned segment that I love to say every week is, I read it on the internet. Came up by my good buddy, Brian Alexovich, whom I'll see pretty shortly when I get to Tennessee. And this is where we pick the best of Reddit. This week, our preppers. If you don't know what Reddit is, that is okay. What Reddit is kind of like an old-fashioned message board with a lot of gatekeeping, some real weirdos. But if you can filter through all the crap that's on there, you will find some incredible information, some incredible sources of stuff you can pull from. Trust me. So you don't have to go there. I'll go there for you. I'll filter through the cesspool and I'll share you what I find. So each week I sort it by top stories, top posts of the week. And this is the one that I settled on this week. So I'd like to hear from the community as we go along here too. You guys can let me know what you think. But the title of this is, My Mother Donated My Preps Behind My Back. It's short enough that I'm going to read the whole thing. It is by a user named Thick and Sound. So anyway, it's an interesting story. Hang on for this roller coaster ride. So this is a rant, probably a reminder to some to keep your mouth shut and don't let people know. The dude says he's autistic, severe OCD, and his therapist has helped me realize that my prepping has stemmed from that. I like to pretend it'll help me control the chaos, which in my mind, I think is an outlet for a lot of folks. You know, for me, I grew up in a, an evangelical, the world is going to end household, at least to an extent. And I think that's where part of mine came from. So I grew up prepping, always hanging on to useful items for an event of an emergency. It drove my mother nuts because she thought of it as hoarding and making my condition worse. Even though I've always organized, labeled, back then I prepped out of my parents' garage. So when she donated everything behind my back, it made me upset, but it's their house. So I didn't feel justified. So this happened once already, fool me once, blah, blah, blah. Now, later in life, and this is where things get shady. I'm just going to say, I know family members who would act this way to other family members. Let's just put it that way. I have moved twice. I'm now married. We recently finished moving into our new home. My wife also enjoys prepping. She's autistic as well and extremely introverted, so she can just shop for our supplies at home. She usually has what she needs when going out. My family helped us move, and my mother was so frustrated. This really bugs me. So frustrated that we had so much stuff. Imagine that. Instead of just being like, hey, son, I'm happy you're moving into your own place. All she could do was bitch about all the preps that he had. Leading up to this, she would call me and ask, hey, would you donate to our church because they're running drives for food and stuff? I declined and said, and she'd get mad, say I'm hoarding or being selfish, saying it's hurting me and making my OCD worse. Imagine that. What a nice mother. She called me several times over and over again, telling me to donate to a church or a food bank or a school. All right, she keeps pushing her luck. Doesn't happen. Like I said, I know people like this. Last weekend, my wife and I went to visit my wife's family. We were only gone for 2 days because we'd both had to work. In that time period, my mother donated all of my preps down to the containers, got rid of containers, everything, to various places, and completely wiped me out. Holy shit. Yes, I gave my mother access to her home. There's your first mistake right there, buddy. But I didn't think she'd do that. I'm not talking about a few bins either. Imagine a small convenience store. Also, all of my storage containers were nice, airtight containers, meticulously organized and labeled, some worth more than the contents. I'm so frustrated, so hurt, and she still thinks I'm overreacting, which pisses me off. I'm pressing charges this time, and I've filled a no trespassing warning against her. My immediate family basically hates me, thinks I'm overreacting, but my wife and her family have been supportive. Now get this. This is the crazy part. My wife is an accountant and has compiled receipts to accurately estimate this theft to be well north of $100,000. So this dude's been doing good on his own. He's gone out. He's invested his money in being prepared for him, his wife, his future kids. The one mistake he made was giving his mother a key to the house. And I get it. I understand. You want to trust your family. You love your parents. But man, sometimes they treat you like shit. She went behind his back, hauled all his preps out of there. She must have had it planned. Like, it had to have been premeditated. If you've got, you know, an entire garage full of stuff, basically a convenience store worth $100K, six figures. And she donated it across the board, across town, so that he couldn't get it back. Whew, man. When I approached my parents with this estimate, proposing they just reimburse me and deduct it from their own income, my mother laughed and said she'd pay me $10,000 and said that was more than generous because I'm overreacting. She doesn't seem genuinely apologetic at all. Not only that, she lost my trust indefinitely. So I think we're going to press charges if my parents don't settle this. We're speaking with my wife's father, who is a district attorney. I don't want to see my mother go to jail for this, but I'm so hurt by this. Am I overreacting? Or should I just forgive her and move on? Drop her like a fly. I hate to say it. She doesn't trust. She doesn't love you. I don't know what I'm sure in her sick and twisted mind, she thought she was helping you. All I'm going to say it is, what a piece of shit to treat. Anyway, you know, I know none of us are perfect parents by any means, but could you imagine the audacity of planning to go into your own son's home and donate all of the stuff that he obviously views as important to him while he's away, and then to expect him not to be upset? What in the hell is going on there? I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to share that story with you. I kind of felt bad for the guy. Obviously, him and his wife have worked hard to build their preps up. I don't know where it goes. Like he said, he doesn't want to send his mother to jail. Move on, dude. It sucks. It sucks. I feel bad for you. Sometimes you just got to cut family off. It's been something we struggled with for a long time. Yozik says, tell me how you feel. 100%. I just think the mother's, man, I'm just telling you, she's a piece of shit to do that to the poor kid. I feel bad for him. I don't know how old he is. He's probably older than I think, but he's obviously younger than me. And to be able to put together 6 figures of preps. Anyway, I'm done talking about it. Hardway Home Alaska says, anybody remember a movie, late 80s apocalyptic, of a guy who was all alone in the city, hooks up with 2 other people, and at the end he wakes up in his tub like it was a dream? I don't. But if anybody out there can remember that, I'm going to take a picture of this so we don't forget, and I'm going to do some digging, and we will have an answer for you next week unless somebody comes up with it now. Rachel C. says, whether it's for insurance or court, a good reminder to keep an inventory. I love that. Rachel, thank you for being positive and looking at it solutions-based here instead of being so negative. Yeah, you're right. Never a bad idea to keep inventory. Typically, you figure, hey, your house burns down, you have a flood, you lose all your good shit. You don't expect a family member to give it all away, right? John Palmer says sewer. Hardway Homestead says sell her car from underneath her. Sell the car while she's still in it at auction. Maybe you'll get rid of her that way. I don't know. Anyway, that's unbelievable. Kind of a sad one, but you know. All right, next, folks, is, I like this one. This one I came across this week. This is Side Hustle Spotlight. And this is where we talk about somebody who comes up with an ingenious way to make money. And that's what we're all about here, helping folks and making money. And we appreciate both of them. This one's kind of cool. So this was a lady here. Again, I find a lot of these articles from the CBC. I don't love the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, but what they tend to do is they post these really short articles with videos or podcasts attached to them. I obviously can't play this for copyright reasons, but I'll give you the gist of it. This is a cool lady. I believe she said she was in her 60s. She's an Inuit lady. So she's, Native Canadian, but lives up in the north. And during COVID, she had to come up with something to keep herself busy because she used to do a lot of crafts and different things, but where she worked, of course, was shut down. So she had to decide to come up with something. So I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but they're Ulus, and they are like a round, I want to call them a skinning knife, but they're more of a fleshing knife. And so up there, they hunt seals, they eat seals, they use every part of the seal. And one of the hardest things is scraping the flesh off of, or the fat and everything off the skin so that they can use the skin. So these are kind of like half moon shaped knives with a bar that comes down, and then she uses a piece of elk antler for the handle, which is great. It's cool. But what she does is she goes around and she collects used hand saws. For some reason, these pieces of metal they must be, tempered or flexible, just the right amount. And she'll trace them out, she'll cut them, and she sells them. And I thought, wow, it was great. I love, her thing was, she had a bunch of hand saws kicking around. She wanted to try it, see if she could do it. And I love seeing this, somewhat older lady using all these electrical gear. She's got grinders going on, the whole works. And she turns them into a masterpiece, and then she sells them afterwards. She said she doesn't clean them up too much so that they still have that kind of patina, that kind of roughed, lived-in look. But I want this to inspire somebody out there. Not who knows, but somebody will be looking around, they'll be out in their garage and be like, man, I got all that metal that I've been holding on to just in case. Guess what? Might be time to liquidate it. Turn it into hard cash. You know what? Build some stuff, trade for some silver, some gold, some crypto, whatever you want to do, or just turn it into something, take it to the farmer's market and make some money. But there is no end to the great things that folks can come up with to make money with. And I love it. I mean, that's ingenious. This lady who was all the way, she was kind of up north where she was, but kind of just completely alone. She couldn't do anything during COVID. And instead of sitting around, sitting on her thumbs thinking, well, I guess I'll have some more Doritos, she decided, hey, shit, I'm going to make stuff and I'm going to make money. Always an opportunity somewhere, folks. So I wanted to share that with you. And if you want to watch that video, the link's in the description too. David Sigler says, going back to the previous story, bathtub full of ice and a good buyer for kidneys, and that dude could be flush again. Yes. Well, they'd be even anyway. And Chris Dixon says, I wonder who that could be. Referring to all the extra stuff that a feller might have or might not have in their workshop. Yeah. So anyway, what do you think of that? Next we have, okay, guys, I want to chat right quick here. The next segment's going to be Cookbook of the Collapse. Now, I have another recipe for you guys, which is great. I love sharing them with you. I had 4 different people reach out and say, hey, Tim, how do I send you recipes for this week's show? So I know people are listening. I know there's interest out there. So if you have Cookbook of the Collapse submissions, send them to me. You can send them in the Telegram group. You can send them through Messenger on Facebook. You can send them through email at therealtimcook@gmail.com, wherever they are. I want tons. I want this to become a community collaborative effort. And it is. I know folks are out there, and I know we all forget. And there's this whole rule in advertising that things need to be said 7 times before people remember. I know. But if you've got them, send them to me. I'd love to have them. All right. So this week, the recipe is from my grandmother again. And this is a good one. So when I was a kid, and I don't have a lot of memories of this because she passed away before I turned 9, but she used to make what she colloquially called doughboys. Now, what most people know them as is dumplings, but they were basically just globs of dough that she would drop into the top of her rabbit stew for the last 15 or 20 minutes, and everybody would fight over them because they were so good. They would just be this globby, carby, doughy mass that would suck in all the moisture from the rabbit stew. And everybody's like, rabbit stew? Are you serious? Oh yeah, it was a delicacy out there. So it was good. And it was dead simple. And it is definitely something I could picture making a pot of homemade stew on the wood stove. Actually, we did this on multiple occasions, and throwing big dabs of GLENNAS Doughboys into the top of the stew. So here it is. Real simple. 1 cup of flour, 2 teaspoons baking powder, half a teaspoon salt, half a cup of milk, mix it all together. And then here's the key, the 2 things we found. Don't disturb them. So when you know the stew's done, the last 15 to 20 minutes of cooking time, you want to take a dollop, dump them in on top. Because what happens if you leave them in too long, they'll sink to the bottom, they'll stick to the pot or stick to the bottom of the pan, and they'll scorch. Also, leave the lid on once you put the dollops in there. So good. But that's the key. If you open it up, I don't know exactly what happens. Physics takes over. And again, they want to sink and they want to stick and they want to scorch. So you don't want to do that. But cup of flour, 2 tablespoons baking powder, half a teaspoon salt, half a cup of milk, mix them together, throw them in, and Bob's your uncle. They are great. So GLENNA's going to have 2 recipes. She's been gone well over 3 decades now, and she'll have at least 2 recipes in the cookbook of the collapse, which I love. Byron Roberts says, rabbit stew and dumplings sounds really good. My earliest hunting memories with my father were rabbit hunting. It was exciting and friggin' miserable, as you wouldn't believe. I didn't love it at the time, but looking back, I think, man, why didn't I? This is how it worked where I grew up. You would, we didn't have rabbit hounds, but lots of folks did. So you would borrow them from family, either my Uncle Paul or my grandfather at the time. You'd go, you'd pick up one of the rabbit hounds. Dad would be like, all right, let's go stake out a tree. And you'd let the dogs run down in the field. And you'd go find some kind of shady old tree that you're like, I don't know. Anyway, it's February. It's cold. There's snow on the ground. You're trying to stay warm. You climb a tree with a 12 gauge in your hand, or a 20 gauge for rabbit hunting quite often. And then the rabbit hounds would start chasing, and they'd make big circles. And as the rabbits would come around, you know, the rabbit hounds were smart enough to give them some leeway, and you would just get a bead on them, and it was fun. It was exciting. Freeze your baguettes off, in the words of Clark's father-in-law. But the only downside, of course, was when you'd sit down to eat rabbit and you'd bite into it and you'd spit out some of that shot shell. So there you go. It was fun. Always had a great time with Dad. It's a good memory. And I always enjoyed rabbit stew. It was fun. But Nan's Doughboys were to die for, folks. All right. Next announcement, because we have 3 sponsors, and right now we've been running 2 shows a week. The other sponsor that I need to mention tonight is Two Chicks Homestead. My good friends Nate and Aaron, they run Homestead Ham Radio and Two Chicks Homestead. They were good enough to put on the workshop delinquent get-together in, I was going to say Ohio, but it's Illinois, last year. Great friends of mine. They have a great podcast. They just did a recent episode all about the cold that they had to deal with. So give them a listen, add them to your old ear holes, and support folks who support the workshop. I thank you for that. All right. What is next, folks? Next, we have This Week in the Workshop. I always like this. This is where we take a look back at the shit I got done this week. So it's 2 reasons I do this. One, so that you guys hold me accountable. If you think I didn't get enough done this week, you can bust my balls. But more than that, it is simply to share ideas so that you might hear some of the things I've been up to and you get motivated and say, hey, I'm going to try that too. Well, I spent a day working on a punch list at the daycare last week. I got lucky. I had to put up shelves, and I went into the room where they were, and the old standards were still there. So I didn't have to screw anything in. I just had to strengthen things up a little bit. So that made my life way easier. Put up some new paper towel dispensers. For the first time in my life, I hung one of those heavy-duty folding change tables that you'd see in a gas station. They were great. Those sons of bitches are heavy. Anyway, you have to obviously anchor them into studs, and you use little leg bolts, but I did it. Managed to finish it off. I assembled a bunch of furniture for the missus, which was great. I don't mind. I go out to the workshop and I spend my afternoon assembling things. We got rid of a couch in the living room, put in some nice new, she bought a couple of really nice cabinets, which I'm enjoying, but we bought a new coffee table that ended up being way too small for the living room. So we bought it. I assembled it. We sold it assembled. Moving on. If you missed this week's video, I put one together on how exactly to choose a solar generator. Got some awesome comments on it. It's been doing pretty good for traction, kind of in the middle of where the videos are at. If you guys missed the interview this week with B-Man Jay, dude could be a runner-up for the most interesting man in the world. If you didn't hear the interview, well, I mean, it's already played, so I can spoil it a little bit. But, you know, he's a part-time actor. He's in the United States Hall of Fame for martial arts. He created his own martial art. He's in the military. The dude is into just about everything. So give it a listen if you haven't yet. We had a new episode of Delinquents Gully Chronicles come out. And if you haven't seen that yet, give it a listen, give it a watch, because it's a lot of fun. I like putting it together. What else? Oh, man. So one of our rentals, I know you guys have been hearing about this crazy. If you ever think about getting into property management, I still say do it, but if something happens, anyway, we got a clogged sewer line that we've been all week trying to, actually tomorrow would be 7 days since we discovered it was a bit clogged. It hasn't gotten worse, but it's not running really good. We have insurance, which I told you guys about this summer. We bought water line, sewer line insurance from a company, which was worth every penny. But it's been an entire week getting somebody here to be able to fish and flush the line out. So we'll see where we end up. If they clear it with a steamer, then we're golden. If they don't, they have to dig. But either way, insurance covers it. It's just a matter of getting somebody to show up to do the damn thing. I spent yesterday working. I mentioned wanting to get done this rental before I head to Tennessee again. And it will be, so anyway, I spent an entire day putting countertops down, finally making headway. What do we got left? We just need to put top coat paint in the kitchen and top coat paint upstairs, and then a total remodel of the bathroom. Simple as that. So we're getting there. What else? The guys busted my balls over on Telegram, but I'm going to share this with you anyway, because I was pretty damn proud of it. But I had a conversation with Chris Dixon, a conversation with B-Man J, and we were talking about different ways to use the chamber vac that I have. And what did I decide to do? Well, because things get wet, things get torn, I took a pair of boxers and a pair of socks, and I made a shrink wrapped or vacuum sealed package, labeled it. And so now they're shrunk way down, and they fit into my go bag and the kind of storage space underneath the floor of the truck. Give me 1 second, folks. I got to let a cat out. I didn't know he was in here. There we are. So if anybody hears that on the audio, I hope you appreciate it. I always check my office before the show starts, and then all of a sudden I realized there was a cat over in the corner. So I hope you guys enjoyed. That was Arthur. He's a sweet little red-headed ginger that, I don't know, he's a little simple. So anyway, freeze dryer report. I freeze dried, freeze drove. Anyway, ground pork, ice cream sandwiches, and fudgesicles, which were really cool. They've been a big hit with the kids. I'm going to do some small bite-sized ones for the kids at the daycare. I did some ground beef hamburger and, oh, yes, don't forget about Patreon. We put a new video up there, Outside the Box, where Alice and I tested out a bunch of, they were food we got at the Asian supermarket. Had a lot of fun with that. A lot of fun. And if you haven't yet, I put a link. I pinned it tonight. So if you want to support the workshop and you believe in value for value exchange, that's the easiest way to deal with it, is $5 a month. And you get a bunch of exclusive content, which is awesome. All right. So next, this is a good one here, folks. And I really like this one. And if you haven't seen it before, give me a second here and I will share it with you. So this is the Creator Spotlight. Now, typically in the past, I have done this as a YouTube channel, or I did one as a TikTok channel, but this one is a book. And I don't know exactly where it came from, but something this week reminded me of this book. So if you've never read it, it's a really short read, but it's a lot of fun to read. And it's called Possum Living. If you've never read it before, I remember many, many moons ago when Becky and I were first married, I ended up, I think I downloaded a free PDF of this because it had lost its copyright or become public domain, or I don't know, who knows? Maybe it didn't. And I just told myself that to feel better. I don't know, but I picked it up and it was such a fun read. It was about a guy who basically for about 5 years, I don't know if he was intentionally unemployed or it happened to him, but him and his daughter basically lived an off-gridish lifestyle just outside of Pennsylvania. And there are so many cool tips in this on how to live as dirt cheap as possible. So if you've never checked this book out, I'm a sucker for finding all kinds of interesting old books like this. And this is a good one. Basically, it said in the late 70s, at the age of 18 and with a 7th grade education, Dolly Freed wrote Possum Living, about the 5 years she and her father lived off the land on a half-acre lot outside of Philadelphia. At the time of its publication, Possum Living became an instant classic, known for its plucky narration and no-nonsense practical advice on how to quit the rat race and live frugally. It was kind of I saw a video the other day. It was all about how hobos would dress up back in the Depression when they were hopping trains and that sort of thing and how they would survive. This was kind of a slightly more modern view of living, kind of like a hobo. It's interesting. In her delightful, straightforward, and irreverent style, Dolly Freed guides readers on how to buy and maintain a home, how to dress well, how to cope with the law, how to stay healthy, save money, be lazy, proud, miserly, honest, all while enjoying leisure and keeping up a middle-class facade. It's good. If you haven't read it, give it a shot. I love the book. It was many, many years ago, and it's definitely worth checking out. All right. So we got a new segment this week, folks, and I like this one. And I think the name is going to be Phone in Their Hand. And you're going to say, what in the world does that mean? Well, the name for this segment came from the comments that I found on this TikTok video. And the original video has been deleted for whatever reason, but there's copies of it up there. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. I'm going to play it for you. It's only 12 seconds long, shouldn't copyright anything. But somebody in the comments said, humanity is going to die with their phone in their hand. And I thought, holy shit, that's a pretty deep philosophical comment for the comment section on TikTok, but they weren't wrong. I really enjoyed that thought, because how often do you watch these stupid videos and you think, oh my God, why did the person hold on to the phone? TikTok talk. I like that from John Palmer. I like that a lot. But how often do you watch these videos and think, why didn't you get to safety? Why are you standing there like a damn deer in the headlights? So anyway, if you haven't seen this video yet, let's see if we can make it a little bit bigger for you. And I'm going to, yeah, it's only 12 seconds. You should be able to get the audio, but you don't need the audio if you can't. So here we go.
Keep the door closed. Keep the door closed. Whoa! Whoa! What?
So if anybody hasn't seen that, it's unreal. I'm going to play it one more time. This is a rogue wave that hit a restaurant at a military base on the Marshall Islands. And here it is. It's so there's people standing there, and you can see that they're just hanging around. Somebody's got a phone in their hand. They can see this massive wave and nobody does anything. There's two people outside. I had to watch the video a bunch of times to figure out whether I was going to end up being, whether they were even paying attention. I wondered if they died. And so they didn't. Everybody was fine. I found this article to go along with it. It says waves pummel Marshall Islands Army Base, marathoner recovery ahead. So it wasn't a tsunami like some people said. It was just a rogue wave. But here's the thing. They knew they were in for really nasty weather. They had, I mean, they're at a, you know, a beachside restaurant. Go home, get to high ground, do anything but stand outside watching the waves crash against the building with beers in your hand. And those two people that were at the front of in the door right there, they get washed in, and one dude manages to hold on to his beer. But the thing that blew me out of the way was the fact that the dude just stood there and recorded the whole damn thing. Like maybe it's the modern version of, you know, the female in the 1930s movies of fainting because they didn't know what to do. Maybe this is just the modern version of that, but I don't know. I got to shout out a couple of other folks here from, what we got? Lone Canadian. Good to see you, brother. He is a neighbor not too far away, and another fellow Commonwealthian. Hello from Australia, Ellen. Good to see you. Happy Australia Day, everyone. I didn't know it was Australia Day, but happy Australian Day to you as well, Ellen. It's great to see you again. Always love seeing you in here. I don't know what time it is in Australia, but it's either really early or really late, but I don't know, one way or the other. So anyway, we may not do this segment all the time, but I enjoy it. I like these stupid videos that I'll send to Becky, and I'm like, can you believe this shit? What were they doing? Of course, I'm wasting my time watching them, but you're like, what were they thinking? Why were they standing there? You know, do you not have any shred of self-preparedness left in your body? Because I don't think a lot of folks do. You see those guys that climb those old towers, or, you know, they free climb everything and then they lean out over the edge and take a selfie. It's like, dude, if anybody knows the Darwin Awards, then yeah, you're gonna be a massive recipient of one this year, I think. So it is 13:08 in military time in Australia right at the moment. So yeah, it's a ways ahead. All right. And the final segment of the evening, I do believe, is the community nail bag. Yes, I said nail, and I don't want to get any angry emails. You pronounce mail wrong. No, it's the nail bag. We're going to reach in and pull out some nails. But anyway, I love the name. And I got some good comments this week. I hope you guys enjoy them. Honestly, I don't think there's anything I enjoy more than when I get emails or Telegram instant messages, or I even got one on Facebook this week. I love getting feedback from you, whether it's hey, I tried this and it worked. Or I got a couple of folks this week that messaged me and said, hey, you know, I've had this one video up on YouTube for the last 3 or 4 years about that Easy Does It can opener. And I finally had somebody message me, didn't know me from Adam, and said, hey, Tim, just want to let you know, I picked up that can opener and I wanted to come back and report back that I love it. Thank you very much. So that kind of stuff means the world to me. It makes me smile. Every time I get one, I tell Becky about it like a little kid. So thank you guys. All right. First one was from John Killen over on YouTube. And this was a comment from my cold weather start generator video. And he said, another tip that I use with my generator, it's a 12 horsepower with manual pull only. It's in a shed without any other flammables. So I use a 20-pound propane container with a heater hat on it. One of those, you know, they just look like a fan on top that are normally used for construction. I let that run for an hour or two in the shed, which is probably 120 degrees. After a while, it will warm up. Now, these are some neat ideas. I mean, these are not your everyday average ideas that some folks have. But anyway, number one, just a little propane heater in an unheated garage could be enough to get your generator to the point where it's going to run really well for you. This one's even crazier, but I kind of like it. He said you also can drain the glue out of it, he means oil, and warm it up in the house while the propane is warming the machine, and pour it back in and give it a go. Make sure you monitor that the heater touching the heated surface frequently. Open flames and fuel make a bad combo. I'm not recommending any of this, but I love the outside the box thinking. Number one, having a little propane heater in an unheated garage could be just the ticket you need to get your generator up and running. And if you're feeling extra handy and you want to drain your oil, take it inside and warm it up, oh, I'm not going to call you an idiot. I'm going to call you ingenious. So there you go. Thank you, John, for sharing that. Keep them coming, folks. Next, this was Dave. This was in the comments from last week's This Week in Prepping, and he's really good. He shared a lot of good stuff with us over the last couple of weeks. This is a book, Under a Graveyard Sky by John Ringo. It's a pretty interesting take on zombie books. The series requires frequent use of the suspension of disbelief button, but he said it's a good read, and he assumes it's available as audio as well. He also said, I don't know about up north, but in the States, most libraries have free audiobooks. Low-cost option, but probably more limited selection. I like that. And then he also mentioned, last week we did the hamburger soup as the cookbook of the collapse. And he said, my wife does the same soup, but does celery and rice instead of the veggies. Love getting feedback like that. But anyway, I know in Canada, you can get the library audiobooks. And I've never looked into it, but it's a way to save some money for sure. So if you're interested, check that out too. But I'm going to check out Under a Graveyard Sky. I always love getting good recommendations from folks. And if you have any, send them over this way. And then this one here, 2 quick pieces of comment from the community. I loved it. This was on Fountain. If you're not on Fountain, it's a great app to be able to support creators and send them a few Satoshis here and there. But this came from Coop DePookie. I don't know what the name is. Anyway, I love these names trying to say them, but just said, enjoying the weekly recaps. This Week in Prepping shows are awesome. Thank you very much. And then Jake, my buddy Ravenwood Acres, said, I'm really digging these shows, Tim. I appreciate it. So I love hearing that. It makes me smile. I love putting together these This Week in the Prepping episodes. They seem to be a big hit with you. So we're going to keep them coming. I love putting them together. It's kind of, like I said, the combination of all the segments I've been doing over the years with the podcast, and it lets me kind of share all of my post-apocalyptic passions with you. So if you have suggestions for other segments, send them my way. So what am I asking for you guys? Not much, but 2 things. Number one, the free thing, the thing you can do to support the channel is what I absolutely love. Number one, share it. If you like this episode or any of these episodes and they speak to you or they do something for you, let me know. But more than that, let other folks know, because I would love to get this in front of as many people as possible. So thank you for that. And number 2, don't forget about the cookbook of the collapse. This is my new little pet project that I'm enjoying. I said, once we get to 100, I'll put it together in a book and we'll share it. So if you have simple, easy recipes that you can put together using your preps, using the stuff like we have in the Mylar bags and in the 5-gallon buckets, then let me know. Or just, simple, easy, wholesome recipes that your family ends up having. So I would appreciate you to send them along to me any way, shape, or form that you can. And let's take one more look at the delinquent community here on YouTube this evening. Lone Canadian says, might have a couple things on the way that could use a review. We'll talk when they come in. Appreciate it, brother. Always love seeing you. We got to have coffee soon. And Ellen says, well, I've been watching all the vids about Texas and the border. Scary stuff. Free country of Texas coming. I never even thought to talk about that this week. Maybe that'll be on the show next week. So anyway, folks, you know I always appreciate you. Thanks for making this show the highlight of my week. I can't wait to see a whole lot of you in person over the next couple of, well, I got to get 2 more months out of the way. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we got, I got 4 events so far that I'm going to be speaking at over that kind of 6-week road trip down to the States. So I'll see a bunch of you then. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.